All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Four Wide Podcast. This is episode day 7. We're almost to 10. That would be pretty cool once we reach that. So we are 3 wide today. Oh, math. Oh, that kind of math. Okay. I didn't know what Austin was doing, but Austin's here with us today.
안녕하세요.
I'm not even going to try. We got Blake
What?
with us.
What's up, guys?
We don't got Kent with us.
No, we don't. Absent.
What's up, guys? My name's Kent.
Dang.
That's,
Straight for the jugular.
I mean,
20 seconds in.
we've already established that Kent doesn't listen back to it, so he'll be okay. Because I mentioned on the podcast last week, and he's like, yeah, totally. And I'm like, no, this man did not listen to the podcast at all. But, we're back, and we had a very exciting 3 days of racing in regards to NASCAR, and looking really forward to recapping everything. But, of course, as always, make sure to follow the socials at 4Wide, FOURWIDE on Insta. We're on Facebook as well. We're also on X/Twitter, but again, I've not posted anything in a while on there, but we're there. So, all right. So Vegas was very much one of those very interesting kind of tracks because we've seen, honestly, 3 different kinds of racing for the 3 different races that we've seen. So, of course, starting off the weekend, we had the EcoSave 200, and we'll recap a little bit of the finishing positions here. So P1, we had Corey Heim. It was Heim time in Phoenix. I don't know. Some people love it. Some people hate it. But, he's on the road to getting that, 9 truck wins that Austin predicted that he was going to get this year.
On the record.
So, he's on the way. He may have been... He's already been handed 1, so we'll see how more they hand it to him. Grant Enfinger finished P2. Very much a truck that it kind of hung around in the top 13, 14 all weekend long, and was able to adjust on that truck, end up getting up front. Tanner Gray, P3, that's a great performance for that truck and that team. He's been starting out a little rough this year, so it was good to see him up there. You had Majeski, P4. Majeski was one of those trucks that got kind of rubbed on early in the race and lost all kinds of handling, but he eventually was able to make the adjustments with his pit crew and got him back up to the front. P5, you had Lane Riggs. Front row, it was a very much, I feel like they're almost a staple now in the truck series, becoming more prominent every year, and it was good to see Lane Riggs, and Chandler Smith was up there, which we'll get to. Stuart Friesen, P6, another great week for that race team. P7, we had Raja. Of course, he won last year, so you would expect him to be pretty decent. He hung around pretty much in the top 13, 14 all day. P8, we had Chandler Smith. I honestly thought he was going to win the race, before it started raining the second time. We had Matt Crafton, P9. Legend. P10, Tyler Ankrum. He had a top 4 truck before he got into that scraping the wall. Honestly, after that, all handling that truck just absolutely disappeared.
Did you see his post-race interview?
Yeah, he was kind of pissed, wasn't he?
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
So not professional. He's blaming the engineers. He's blaming almost everybody but God himself, man. It was horrible. It's like, dude, you don't throw your team under the bus like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the engineers didn't make a honeycut spin in front of him.
No.
I do have one question. Did Riggs win?
I don't know, man. Let me look. No, it's still Corey Heim. So
sorry, Blake.
We love Blake, but
so good, man.
He gets so excited. He's like, look at Lane Riggs. He's like moving up in the field, and then like 2 laps later, it's just like a rock.
He made me nervous with that when he almost spun, but man, what a save.
Oh my goodness. Well, speaking of saves, great transition. You had Honeycutt P12. He probably had the save of the night. He still spun. There's still a caution, but he very much could have took out a lot of cars there. That was a very good save on Honeycutt's portion, and he ended up finishing pretty high in the race. P22, you had Sawalich. That's very much a struggle for that team. You would expect that team to have a better finish than that, but he's actually out of the ride this week, which we will talk about once we get to talking about Homestead. And then P27, you had the pole sitter, Corey Day, finishing in P20. I know. I know, and he raced all the laps.
Do we know what happened to him? I don't quite remember. He didn't get caught up in anything, did he?
Nothing that we've seen on track.
Yeah.
So,
He
I
didn't get a
mean,
penalty.
don't think so. He might have, but y'all can fact check that. Why? All right, appreciate it. So, Corey Heim catches the win, in which was, I would say, it was a crucial race in showing how a driver maintains good positioning, has adversity. Of course, had the 2 rain delays. He even hit the wall on the restart. I think it was after one of the delays because those restarts were so hectic, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But very much this win was earned. Like, this one was not handed to him, and he had to fight for it at the end. So it's a very good race. But let's just talk about. I mean, we expected him to be good this year, but this really shows the strength of the overall race team. So I'll throw Blake this while Austin's doing his Chat GPT in real quick.
Yeah, I mean, he's with a great team, but you've also seen in the past where drivers have been with great teams and they don't perform. This guy is in a fantastic truck team and he performs. Everything clicks. And even when he filled in for, was it Eric Jones last year at Dover or a couple of years ago, he does a great job in a cup car. Runs the laps, solid performance, and pretty evident why 2311 signed him as a development driver, right? To be in the truck series and you're getting people like Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin and Tyler Reddick who notice your talent, like, you're definitely doing something right. I would not surprise me to see him in the Cup Series. I know he's making some part-time starts, I think, this year. In the it's either the 50 car or the 67 for 2311 or something like that. But it wouldn't surprise me to see him get a full-time ride, even as early as next year. I think he deserves it.
I think the only thing that's going to be a trouble with that is everybody that is on 311 ride is essentially locked up past 2027.
True, but I think you could probably make an argument that there's a Gibbs spot that isn't doing too great right now.
Yeah,
I'm not going to bash the dude personally, but it's not looking great for the 54 team. It's still early. Maybe they can get it turned around, but it's not looking great. But who knows? Maybe another good opportunity with another manufacturer can come up. I doubt it, but you never know. This man really does deserve a cup ride at this point. I don't want to say he's wasting a spot in trucks because, I mean, he's obviously winning, right? But he definitely needs to not be in the truck series anymore. He's definitely proven himself.
well, maybe he enjoys the truck series. I mean, factor that in.
I'm sure he does. I mean, if you win as much as that, I'm sure you got to enjoy it.
Well, we'll mention about Harrison Burton, but I think after the Harrison Burton experiment, moving him up a little bit too early, I think a lot of teams are really cautious now about
That's true.
moving drivers up too soon. These 1-off, 2-off, 3-offs a year, I mean, they're fine with that. But when you're putting someone, I mean, even if you take Ty Gibbs, maybe Ty Gibbs a couple of extra seasons in Xfinity, maybe it would have been a more natural transition to Cup. But he's really struggled with this next gen car since he's come over there. So
yeah, and it's tough, right? I'm sure going from the Xfinity series to the Cup. I mean, obviously it's the competition's harder, but the cars are nothing alike. So, when you can drive well in Xfinity, doesn't always mean you're going to do well in Cup, given the vast differences. I mean, I've heard a lot of the NASCAR insiders, they say that really the way the cars race the truck series, because all the aerodynamics, almost prepares you better than the Xfinity series.
what about you, Austin? You can, if you found anything on day first, and then after that.
No, he didn't have any penalties or anything. He fell to the back.
That's what I thought.
He did win a dirt race the day after.
Yep. It was supposed to be the same night, but of course the rain kind of put a sprinkle on that.
What was your question? Because I was busy looking at the.
Yeah, it's so what was just your overall interpretation of Heim's win, because it wasn't one without adversity, of course hitting the wall, and then of course also having the two different rain delays. You got two red flags, different lengths of time, but the track would be changing over that portion of time. So just talking about how well the team adjusted and whatnot, what was your overall thoughts?
It was one of the most impressive drives I've seen in the Truck Series in a while. The man passed over 40 cars that night to win the race. Because, like you said, he did have adversity. And so that really impressed me. For one, to stick with it, to stay with it, and, keep persevering when the race doesn't kind of fall your way, and then to fight back and pass the entire field again for the win. I mean, that's just so impressive. And I mean, he's living up to what we talked about beginning of the year. I mean, he's in a good ride. He's a good driver. He showed it Friday night, being able to adapt to a track that changed multiple times throughout the course of the night. He's an impressive kid.
I mean, how old is he now?
I don't know.
He's right.
I'll look it up.
Yeah.
So I have no idea.
I mean, we call him kid, but he's probably older than us or close to our age, in all honesty. But
he's 22. Yeah, he's a kid.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like
born in 2002.
Nice. I can't remember what I was doing in 2002. But
like 7 years older than him. Yeah. So yeah, he's a kid. He's a kid to me.
Austin's our residential boomer on the podcast. So. How old is Kent? Is Kent older than Austin?
No,
Kent's
I'm
like
the
20.
oldest here.
Kent be 7.
Yeah, probably. He's close to my age.
They should raise your horsepower in the cars. It'd make the races more interesting. Why the heck are they bringing in these stupid stages? Ruins the flow of the race.
Oh gosh.
I hate cowboys.
And just for the record, he's sober.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Well, like we said, rain played a partial, not even a partial, a crucial part of the race, and just kind of throwing it to our tire guy here. How do you think the track adjusted with the different rain? So of course you had like the downpour that was the first rain delay, which may have been the first rain that Las Vegas has seen since Harriet Tubman was alive or something. But I know it's just a random fact.
I was there when Harriet Tubman.
But man,
maybe just talk about how the track adjusted in regards to the tire wear and whatnot that you've seen on the track, and how teams had to adjust as they went.
Yeah, so the track definitely changes a lot when the rain comes, right? So, as the practices have gone on, the trucks have been on the track all day, tires have been putting down a lot of rubber, and that makes it to where it's a little bit slicker. But when the rain comes, it wipes all that out. All right, wipes all that out and makes it to where the speed goes a little bit higher, and it's cool, so you get a little bit more grip. But you also got to be, as a crew chief too, you got to kind of be smart with it, because though it's cooler and you might can go faster, you got to make sure your tires don't offset like the balance of your car, right? You got to have the right PSI in them, and especially at Vegas, it's very low grip anyway, very sensitive to the temperature. So it's a lot of stuff that you got to consider in a rain delay like that, and they adapted. It's really cool to see how smart these teams are. I mean, you give these teams an objective challenge like that, they figure it out usually within the weekend.
What about you, Austin? Did you see any? Well, I mean, obviously, seen noticeable trucks going the wrong way after the first restart, and then you seen those trucks make their way back forth after the second or third restart, and then you had another rain delay. So, what did you see anybody in particular that was like you just disappeared off the face of the earth, and then at the end of the race they were right there? That kind of shows the testament of their team.
Well, I know we kind of talked about him because of his post race interview with Tyler Ankrum. I mean, he had a pretty good car going into the weekend, and he went way back in the back, struggled, had some issues, and then somehow there at the end he was up there fighting for spots, trying to, and did he get he got a top 10 out of it?
Yep.
So that's the guy that I automatically came to mind. Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't see what the racing was like before the first rain delay. I came in to the race after the first rain delay. Unfortunately, I missed like the first 30 laps. But from what I saw, Ankrum was one of those guys that I noticed that did that.
He was pretty potent the second stage. He literally won the second stage, and it looked to be the strongest truck at that point. And then just gone.
Well, I think on the contrary too, you look at like Lane Riggs and Enfinger. You look at Riggs' truck; they just missed the balance that whole weekend. Because you go to Vegas, you don't expect rain. You expect it to be hot and slick track, low grip, and then you get there and two unexpected rain showers pop up that wasn't even on the radar.
Well, not to mention too, Riggs had to start from the rear too.
Yeah.
So add that to it.
Yeah, and Enfinger seemed like kind of mid, and then the rain came, and he was hauling to get up there. So I think definitely you got to give kudos to those teams for sure.
Especially where Enfinger's not in like a prominent team anymore. It's like their own thing.
Yeah, that from everything I've seen with that team, they're I mean, obviously they're independent. They don't have many alliances with any big name teams from everything I've seen, but they're putting race winning trucks together. It's a small team, but they're putting race winning trucks together. And I think Enfinger, wasn't he a Final Four guy last year?
Yeah, he won Dega towards the end of the year and had really good spurt. He won 2 or 3 races at the end of the year. They were putting it together at the right time, and just, of course, didn't finish it out last year. But
yeah, he's definitely getting the most out of that equipment for sure.
I love the way he talks. I love the way Enfinger talks.
I know.
It's great. The only other storyline is kind of a minor storyline. Is Bailey Curry actually had a tire get loose on pit road. Was almost a like a foreshadowing of what we were going to see coming up later on. Man, what a mess. So that's going to be a penalty, of course. Had the penalty at the track, and then, of course, you're going to have crewman suspended for that. So I wanted to mention that just in case there was any Bailey Curry fans that listened to the podcast. Which, I mean, I like Bailey Curry. I mean, he seems to be a good guy. Team's not massive. Always support the underdogs in the sport. So, had a pretty good finish last week or the week before. I think it was last week.
I tell you who really put Nice on the map was Ross Chastain when he ran for him.
Well, he's running for him this weekend.
Yeah, I meant when he ran for him full time. But yeah, you are right. Yeah.
So, all right. So, Xfinity had the what's that? You're not going to tell me what it is?
It's just my daughter's mixer toy.
Oh,
so the Luana.
Liuna. We're 3 people from the South, don't La Uno.
We're over here playing Uno.
La
Oh my
One.
gosh. All right, so Xfinity Series, man, kind of a snoozer in regards to lead changes and whatnot. Only had 7 lead changes among 5 drivers and 3 cautions. And of course, 2 of those were for stages. The only caution came, I think it was Sawalich, maybe? I can't remember. Somebody got in the wall like pretty early. Yeah, that little Gator P1. I mean, I ain't saying anything too much about our Pick'em series, but we've legit got all 4 of our championship picks in within, what, 5 races?
Yeah, 5.
It's almost like we know what we're talking about when it comes to the Xfinity series.
That's
No,
right.
Cup is out the window at this point.
Speak for yourself.
Well, yeah. You won't be saying that when it's the end of the year and he won't win anything like Byron did last year.
I mean, Byron every year?
Yeah, Kent's not here to defend himself today. P2, Eric Almirola. I cannot believe that they're not letting Almirola drive this weekend after being first, second, and this track that we're coming up to is one of his best tracks statistically.
Mm-hmm.
Homestead's a fantastic track for Eric Almirola.
You almost gotta wonder, was that like who's driving the 19 this week?
I have it written down and everything. We'll get to it. I think it's Justin Borsch. Austin would know how to.
Monsinger. Yeah.
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 Which I think he started one race earlier this year. It's probably Coda.
I think it was Daytona.
It may have been Daytona.
Yeah. That must have been like must have just been a business decision on the Gibbs Xfinity part, you would think.
Well, Almirola's only racing a part-time schedule, and he probably chooses.
That's probably true.
You know, what weekends he wants with his kids and what weekends he wants to race, but most of the time the kids are spending the weekend with him anyways.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so, I mean, Almirola's been dominant here, and then he's going right out the window. I'm sure he'll be back from Martinsville since he swept him last year. So, Jesse Love, we love Jesse Love here on the podcast. P3. P4 had Austin Hill, had a nice top 5. Nice recovery after missing the wall presence last weekend. So, it was great to see Austin Hill back up there. Sam Mayer, P5. I mean, he's been consistent as you can be in a Haas factory car. So P6, Brandon Jones, another good weekend for him. P7, Ryan Sieg. My man finds ways to get top 10s when he doesn't deserve a top 20.
He's scrappy, man. He's a scrappy driver.
He's been killing it.
Yeah.
And then P8, another guy that's been killing it there is Harrison Burton, man. For a team that couldn't throw a car together. And then this guy comes in, of course, having, Cup knowledge now, moving down. He's been fantastic.
If you didn't say something, I was going to say something and give him a little shout out because he has done a great job with AEM racing this year.
I'm actually going to mention it when we get to Cup because, I mean, obviously the connection is there, but I've been seeing a lot of things online that I feel like it's really unfair, and I do kind of want to give it due, but I want to talk about it once we get there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Harrison Burton's been doing a fantastic job this year. Jeb Burton too. I mean, both of them they're really high up in points. So it's been a really good year for them. Got Harrison Burton already. P9, Connor Zilic. JRM car, you'd always expect them to be in the contention. P10, you got Sheldon Creed. Top 10 for Sheldon Creed. Probably not what he was looking for. He's probably looking for a higher finish. And then P11, since Blake called him out last weekend, Kyle C got P11 this weekend. I almost had a P10 was battling towards the end of the race. P12, we got Daniel Dye, another name that wouldn't necessarily expect. There was a lot of people like Quapple and people that you would expect to be more closer up front. Christian Eckes was P13. So that's who I had written down in regards to the finishing positions. But, I mean, this was a one-man show. This whole race was a one-man show. You had different instances where drivers would look like they were going to be in contention, but there was no doubt Allgaier was the man to beat, just like he was last weekend, and he was actually able to finish it off. So, I mean, led 102 laps and captured a stage win. He was second in the second stage, very much could have won both stages and the race. So,
I think he definitely had a chip on his shoulder after last week.
Yeah, I would say so. So, I don't even think we necessarily have to talk about Allgaier that much, but I feel like we need to give him his due. It's been a struggle early this year, but it's not been, because he's had bad cars. He's had great cars. It's just things just not gone his way. And I think Austin can speak to this because he picked him to be his championship pick, so he's been following it more closely, but he's just had terrible luck, and then now he's locked in. So everything's out the window now. It don't matter where you finish for the rest of the year if you don't, till, playoff time, of course. But just talk about Austin in regards to the struggles and whatnot that you've seen, and of course getting it locked in this weekend?
Well, I mean, the first 2 races of the year are a crapshoot. It's Daytona and Atlanta. Atlanta, it's the Austin Hill Show. Daytona, it's a crapshoot. And then you get to Phoenix, or yeah, you get Dakota. Justin's not really the best road course racer on the circuit. Then you get to Phoenix. I had the car to beat, and then kind of got screwed over like Carl Edwards in 16, which we'll talk about later today. But had a late race caution, bunch everybody back up, and then just got caught in the 3 or 4 wide, had to back out, and then he never recovered. So this week he came into that second half of the race and just killed it, dominated. So we all knew it was coming. We all knew it was a matter of time before Justin got a win. I never for a second doubted that he was going to get a win. It was just a matter of time of win. I mean, he's definitely, obviously, if you're in JRM equipment, we all know the track record that Allgaier has in Xfinity. It was only a matter of time before he got a win, and I didn't really think it would come here at Vegas. I thought if anywhere, it'd be Martinsville, but I'll take it.
What about you, Blake? Anything else that you want to throw on top of that praise for Allgaier?
Well, I think we've got to start talking about him as one of the all-time Xfinity greats. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know exactly what all his statistics are, but man, he's got to be in the top, if I had to guess, 5 or 6 of.
Someone didn't read the group chat.
No, it's been a wild week. Hadn't had a chance, but.
Because Cole put that in the group chat.
Well, I missed that.
I think it was Kent.
Was it?
I think
it was Kent. Yeah, but still.
Yeah.
Well, what are his numbers?
So, 23 wins in the 7 ride alone.
Wow.
2 wins in the 31 and 1 win in the 70 or in the 12 car.
Yeah.
That's with, oh gosh, math. I hate math, guys. 476 races. So, average finish 11th, average start 8.6. Only 60 DNFs in his whole career. 127 top 5s in the 7 car alone.
Wow.
201 top 10s in the 7 car. I mean,
it's a shame that in the Cup he never had a good car. Really, truly.
He's definitely one of those drivers. It makes you wonder, like, what if he would have had that right equipment? What if he would have had that right combination of driver and crew chief and team? It just makes you wonder, and it's a dang shame that it never happened, really. But nah, just to go back to praise for Allgaier. I mean, every time you turn an Xfinity race on, you know he's going to be in contention somehow or another, and that just shows what good of a driver he is.
Good person too.
Oh yeah.
You can just tell. Like, some people just ooze authenticity, and Allgaier's that guy. And I have everything up at the same time. So his average finish at Las Vegas is 6.9. So
it's pretty good.
I mean, it's a pretty good track, and that's the reason I chose him this weekend. Just looking down the line, of course, locking him out at Martinsville is kind of rough, but there's other drivers that I think that will probably end up winning Martinsville. Eric Almirola, but if he drives, I don't know. But I feel like JGR is, of course, going to let him drive from Martinsville. So, yeah, easy money right there. Easy clock. Yeah, Allgaier had a great day. Xfinity fastest lap was Connor Zilic on lap 100. So I got that extra point in the bag, which I'll take as he's my championship pick for this year.
You know what's really funny is for years Formula One has done. If you get the fastest lap, you get a point. I love the year that NASCAR adopts that rule. Formula One gets rid of it. So it was like a switch off. Formula One has gotten rid for some reason. And even the broadcasters on Sunday were like, I don't understand why Formula One did this, but I just think it's funny, the switch off.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're like, NASCAR's like, we want to be different than them. They swapped it like, all right, run it back. We're changing it. Oh my gosh. William Sawalich, the only caution in the race, ends up in the wall. Jeb Burton assisted with that by pulling the air off the back of that car. And sad casualty to that is Parker Resloff ended up in spinning and didn't get too much damage, was able to recover with an okay day. But as you've seen with the Cup race, track position is really, really important when it comes to Las Vegas. So it did kind of put a damper on Resloff's day. But I did want to mention that because, I mean, Sawalich had a lot of hype coming into this year, mainly because of the rides that he is riding in. Tricon for truck whenever he makes his starts. And then, of course, in a really good ride, I can't really think of anybody other than with JRM that would be more consistent in the Xfinity series than JGR, right? I will mention that Josh Williams had to be pulled from the car mid-race. Was very much still feeling that sickness. Don't know if it's a flu, COVID, RSV. I mean, you pretty much...
You probably got it from Kent.
Or Blake. You probably seen Blake at Bowman Gray. He was there as a fellow watcher of the race, and Blake coughed his way, and this just took this long to incubate in his body. But Ty Dillon actually replaced him, colleague driver, so it was kind of a natural transition. And they're in similar size. But I do want to throw out we're thinking of you, Josh Williams. We hope you get feeling better. We love you over here. Park It was one of our favorite moments in Atlanta. Even repave, I mean, it's up there. And we're just thinking about you, and we hope you get feeling better. So, and then, of course, I mentioned Almirola already, but can we just talk about how fantastic he looks? I mean, retires, and then he comes back, and he looks like just a man, like an absolute man in the presence of boys. Like, the dominance.
Fencing people for the glory of God.
Young life. Amen. In all seriousness, he's been really strong this season.
Yeah, he has.
And we've talked about the power of what JGR brings to the racetrack. But, I mean, you have Sawalich, who's been struggling this year so far. So, I feel like it... Go ahead.
I always feel like Almirola was kind of a career that was wasted in NASCAR. Driving for the 43, obviously didn't do much with the 43. 43 was irrelevant for years. Kind of like the 3. But then he gets into the 10 with Smithfield for Haas, and also, consistently not really that good. And it just makes me wonder, and I feel like he kind of got into Haas on the tail end of things too. And so it makes me wonder, like, if he got a ride like an actual, Joe Gibbs car, or even Trackhouse or some other up and coming program, it kind of makes you think, what if he had a better ride in the prime of his NASCAR career? Would his career have looked different?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what we were talking about with Justin Allgaier a little bit too, right? Because, I mean, Almirola, outside of super speedways and New Hampshire, it wasn't hitting on much. And you always kind of rooted for him. He was such a nice guy. I mean, obviously, you see with a lot of his sponsors, he's a very avid Christian. A lot of people rooted for him, but just never seemed like he could click with the team. I mean, I'm sure with the 43, he got out of it as much as what he could, right? And then, yeah, I think what was going on behind the scenes, what we know now with Stuart Haas, where it seems like Tony Stewart was just kind of slowly trying to work his way out and work his way kind of out of the scenes a lot. It wasn't a great time to be there either.
And it felt like Harvick was the favorite.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean,
for sure.
You got a championship driver. I mean, you're going to put most of your resources to them. I mean, that's how Hendrick was with Jimmy Johnson. I mean, in all honesty. Of course, you had Jeff Gordon stuff still winning races, but it definitely felt like those little bit of favoritism whenever it came to the playoffs.
Well, the 5 car all those years really got the short end of that stick. I mean, I think Casey Kane was a good driver, but you look at the 48, the 24, and then you look at the 88 and the 5, and they are on 2 separate planets.
I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you've seen, like, the dominance that Casey Kane was in the 9 car. I mean, absolutely fantastic. And whenever he got that contract at Hendrick, it was a big deal. Everybody, that was a big signing then. And it just...
He was phenomenal for Ray Abraham.
Yes.
Like, he was great in the 9. Arguably one of the best rookies in the history of NASCAR, just in consistency. And then, he gets to Hendrick and his career just falls apart. I mean, he gets a couple of wins, but
yeah,
nothing like what he was doing for Abraham.
I mean, he goes 2015 and 2016 without a win in a Hendrick car. I mean, it's one thing if you're a rookie, like Chase Elliott. It took a couple years to, he's coming out of the Xfinity Series trying to get his holdings in the Cup Series. That's one thing. But when you got a veteran like Casey Kane, he can't seem to win for a couple years. It shows you that something ain't right.
Well, I mean, he literally had Bill Elliott, because Bill Elliott was the main guy back then for Ray Abraham. And he's like, hey, I'm getting out of the sport. I'm retiring, and I want you to replace me. I mean, what else could you want? Like, there's not many Hall of Fame drivers that come up to you and be like, hey, you're the guy I want to take over this ride.
And even then, Bill was still active in Ray Abraham. He raced the 91 several times in 04. So, yeah.
I mean, I think that just speaks to Casey Kane, and I hate that he doesn't get the appreciation from the sport because of the last few years of his career. And I feel like Amarola, like you mentioned, it's a very good comparison. It feels almost the same. It really does.
Well, his health also kind of fell off, too.
It did.
Because I remember, and you and I were there for it, he did well in that 2018 July race. And he was, no, granted, I mean, super speedways are the great equalizer, right? But it looks like he had a really good shot to win that race, and his health just goes downhill not too long after that.
Yeah. I would say for anybody that's not listened to it, I would definitely recommend listening to Dale Jr.'s podcast with Casey Kane. It's a really good interview, and he kind of talks about that kind of stuff in depth, especially with him making his Rockingham return that Blake won't be there for now.
It's a shame.
It's a darn shame.
Yep.
What the world's gotten to do?
But it's good to see people kind of rallying around Casey Kane now. And same thing with Carl Edwards. We'll talk about maybe that a little bit after the Cup, see how that goes. But it's really good to see like these old school. I mean, I wouldn't even consider Carl Edwards old school, but he kind of is old school now. Kind of driver coming back and just seeing how the NASCAR community, even if they didn't like them, like, I'll be the first person to tell you, I used to think Carl Edwards, like, I see him do the backflip or whatever, and I'm like, this man's a show off.
I remember Carl Edwards did the backflip.
See, but, like, now I see Carl Edwards, and I'm like, one of the best in my lifetime at racing a race car. And just because, I mean, you look at his career, him going to a JGR, I mean, he had success, but it was nothing like that 99 car, in the grand scheme of everything. So it's kind of funny how when these drivers go to another team that's predominantly big and it just doesn't work out for them, you kind of like throw them on the back burner and like, man, but then when they come back to the sport, you're like, I mean, honestly, great driver. But last thing I want to mention is, I mean, I have to mention Ryan Sieg again this weekend. Had that top 10 because he literally could not shift his car on the restarts. So on these restarts, he would be crawling, absolutely crawling. But it did turn out that, there was only 3 cautions, so there was not many restarts. So it worked out good for him. But just another shout out to Sieg, because that shows perseverance over equipment. Will end up beating, anything. You persevere, you do what you can as a driver, make the slight adjustments that you can as a team to rally around your driver. You can end up rallying around a bad day to end up having a car that, I mean, towards the end of that race, he was moving up a lot. So
you just gotta put yourself up by the bootstraps.
Put my wingtips on, let it fly. But we'll go ahead and move to Cup now. Might be a spicy take from me, but it's probably my favorite race of the year so far. 32 lead changes between 13 drivers. 9 cautions for 53 laps. There went Austin's spicy take last weekend. P1, the man, the myth, the legend, Grassroots, love him. Josh Berry got that first career win.
Yes, sir.
Blake's got his Wood Brothers hat on that does not have Josh Berry's name on it because he just wanted a default Wood Brothers hat.
Well, I bought it last year, and obviously Harrison Burton was, and I hated to be like this, but I saw all these nice Motorcraft hats, and I knew he was going to the 21 car. I'm like, it'd be really nice to have a Josh Berry hat, but I also don't want one that's got like Harrison's signature, right? And so when the lady told me that it didn't have Harrison's name on it, I said, I want it. I'm looking forward to Barry coming back, and the lady's like, we can't wait to have him. Yeah,
that's rough.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wait.
Yeah.
Well,
it was kind of bad.
Well, you do have to think that these free apparel's the people that run all the merch haulers. That's who they merchandise and stuff through. I mean, they really don't have I guess they want their hauler to be successful in regards to everything, but they don't really have favorites, I would think. But then you have people saying something like that, and you're like, okay, maybe they do. You know?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's like, do you know if they're like free employees or Penske employees that work at an E3 truck, or?
I couldn't tell you, brother. That would be a email that you'll need to send as being our communication specialist outside of social media. That's kind of your job.
No, I know.
Sorry.
Call them out.
Man.
Got to.
But,
gosh dang.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want whatever your truck is to be successful, and if it's not, you might merge with another truck.
Bowman and Byron have merged with JRM's truck.
Yeah.
At the track, which is wild to me. I'm like, what?
And then it's like, you might not necessarily have a job if your truck has no need anymore, right?
Yeah, I guess.
So I could see why they want a lot of success too.
But how about Josh Berry, man? Like,
get to it.
We want to praise Barry.
I know you do. I'm wearing legit his Sunny D hat from last year. I don't want to hear it. Daniel Suarez P2, a great performance by Trackhouse in general, but I mean Suarez needed to stop the bleeding, and Blake predicted that he was going to get a top 10. He sure enough did. So it was great to see Suarez up front battling, and then I predicted that my guy Ryan Preece was going to be in the top 5, and he's P3. And let me tell you what, guys. The pit stop they had, that last pit stop they had, was absolutely fantastic. I mean, it looked like a Hendrick pit stop. Or, honestly, when I think of Xfinity Series, Eric Almirola has one of the best pit crews. I mean, they're always off pit road. They're way ahead of anybody. So, that 19 car. So, I don't know if it fluctuates based upon who's driving that weekend or if they're stuck with the 19 or whatever. But that's kind of how I viewed Preece's last pit stop. And man, he drove the wheels off that thing this weekend. So shout out to Ryan Preece. William Byron P4, great track for him. So it kind of makes sense that he'd be competing for a top 5. Ross Chastain, P5. I mean, I talked about it last week, even though I didn't pick him. Chastain's fantastic at this track. Super consistent.
Well, you couldn't pick him, sir.
It's true. I was interlocked, wasn't I? So I'll use that as an excuse. P6, Austin Cindric got that top 10. Blake's probably pretty heated about that. P7, Alex Bowman.
Not this week. Not this week.
P7, Alex Bowman. Great performance by him. Great performance.
I thought he had
Go
a
ahead.
car that could win. Honestly, the first half of the race, I thought he had a car fast enough to win, but he just didn't have he didn't have it there at the end.
Yeah, I think getting shuffled in the back kind of hurt him pretty bad. He was one of the drivers that had to fight all the way back up. So P8, you had Dinger. Great performance by AJ Allmendinger. I mean,
it's one of his best intermediate tracks too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does great there.
So Kyle Larson, P9. I mean, probably the car to beat, you would think, and then he's barely makes it in the top 10 because of that last caution. That last caution really screwed the strategy up for a lot of the really good competitive cars.
My wife was so mad.
She's like, "Why did they pit?"
No. She's sitting here going, she's like, Larson, why are you going backwards, dude?
Like you put it in reverse, Terry, on the track. Gosh. Chase Elliott, P10. We talked about it last week. Just a salvage day. I mean, that's what Chase has been living off of right now, but it's working. And we will get to that. P12, you had our 3-time winner this year, Christopher Bell, finishing outside the top 12. That's kind of just because strategy didn't go their way. I mean, I felt like they had a good car. It was moving up, and then you get to that dirty air and you're just gone. So.
How about his move on pit road?
Fantastic move.
Man,
but
you want to talk about
it had nothing to do with him. That was totally Adam Stevens.
Nah, I know, but talk about like a genius move by that team.
It's happened before. It was mentioned to me that it's happened before, but like Fox made sure they covered it. They're like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." So, and P15
saved him a lot of penalties.
Yep. Didn't say Briscoe this weekend.
No.
P15, Joey Logano, I mean, had a great car, but got in that dirty air, just gone. Wasn't doing nothing. So I know Austin was sad about it in Logano fandom, but he was happy about it because of the Pick'em series. He was kind of like in the middle this weekend. It's probably the most lukewarm he's been about Logano in a while.
I mean, I always wanted to win, but unless Camp picks him, but you know, it is what it is. That we'll talk about it, but that caution that threw the pit strategies completely on its head, really screwed him over, got him in dirty air, and he just could never. His car wasn't made to fight through the dirty air. So,
I mean, honestly, like from 10th to 18th back, it screwed them so bad because those were cars that were so good. Like they had good running cars, but you get thrown in the middle of the pack and you're just dumpster fire. I mean, that's what you are. You're like Juan Pablo hitting the jet dryer. That's what your equivalent is.
2012 vibes.
Yeah.
You're Danica trying to purposely wreck somebody.
Goodness.
And wreck yourself.
The 45 had the fastest lap on the track, getting that extra point. Reddick looked really good this weekend. Didn't have the overall finish that showcased that, but he had a really good car. I may have used it up a little bit early, but
that caution screwed them up too so bad.
Yep. Blaney.
Weekend to forget.
Yeah, for real.
So I'll talk about it later. Deep breath, Blaney fans. Deep breath. SVG, I mean, I've never seen a man cut so many tires in my life. It has the Red Bull scheme come back on. It's supposed to be a great week. Everybody is hype about it. And then cuts 3 tires. What was that? I heard something.
Oh, no.
That's probably Blake. I blame Blake.
Blame Blake.
Yeah, that noise. Is that you, Austin? Is that you playing with your little mixer?
Austin's learning how to cook, everybody.
I know how to cook. At least
gosh.
I never burned a bologna sandwich.
I didn't burn it. I didn't. You fry it like that on purpose, but it wasn't burnt.
It was crispy, wasn't it?
Was crispy.
I saw more black than I saw pink. That's just what I'm saying.
Oh my gosh.
That's how it's meant to be. It's
well
done.
I like a good old bologna sandwich that tastes like charcoal.
It looked like charcoal.
Tastes like Kingsford.
I heard it's good for the teeth. Makes them strong.
Oh my gosh. Kyle Busch I think he had a really good car this weekend. I really thought he would be competitive, and then some nimwit forgot to tighten a lug, and there goes not just the tire, but there goes the whole freaking wheel off the car. Like, you hate to see it.
Washed.
Dang it, Austin.
Hey, I'm committed to it. Said it. I have to be committed to it.
That's fair.
That's respectable.
Okay, go ahead. I know y'all want to talk about it. Go ahead.
A berry?
Josh Berry.
Yes.
We've talked about several things.
I said I know that y'all want to talk about it. I thought that would be obvious.
I read your mind. I knew what you meant.
I didn't know what he's...
Nah, man. So happy for Barry. I mean, so nice to see a guy that just grassroots. I mean, really resonates a lot with the fan base. Didn't come from much money, and he's winning a Cup Series, and it's not at a super speedway. It wasn't a fluke win. He outright, along with his team, outsmarted everybody with the strategy, and they brought a great car, and they've got a great driver, and he has done so good for the Wood Brothers this year. Phoenix, top 5, top 6, something like that.
Top 5. He finished 4th last week.
That's right. Atlanta, he's out leading laps, multiple laps, and it's just such a great start for the Wood Brothers this year. And so just nostalgic. I mean, you look at the pit crews uniforms that they got on, and it's awesome. The longest running team in NASCAR, and you got to root for the Wood Brothers. You love to see them do well, and it's just a feel-good story because Josh Berry, I think, kind of represents a lot of those racers at your local tracks that if they had the right opportunity, they could do well, but they just don't ever get the opportunity, but he did. And especially if you grow up going to your local track, you would love to see a guy like, you would love to see guys you watch race week in, week out, be able to get a shot like this. And it is so awesome for the NASCAR community.
Go ahead, Austin.
Yeah, I mean, he was decent most of the day. But to be honest, I never thought he had a winning car, especially their last 50 laps. I mean, he was right there in the middle. But he got that late caution and was really able to take advantage of some clean air. And he had a rocket ship. And I was like, man, he's got a chance to win this thing. And when he got around Byron, that's where I was like, okay, he's got a shot now. So yeah, just really impressive. I figured a win was coming if they could keep on this consistent roll that they've been on. So yeah, that was really impressive, and it's hard to hate the guy. I mean, he was very likable in Xfinity, and then man, just had a awful car last year with Haas, and obviously now we know what we know about Haas. There's a reason for that, and then now he has Wood Brothers, and it's clear Penske engines are running good, and they look good. And so, it was cool seeing Harrison Burton win last year at Daytona, but, I mean, let's be honest, it's Daytona. I'm not going to say it's a fluke, because it takes skill to get up there,
For sure.
but there's a little bit of luck that's involved with that, and what Barry did was all skill. 100% driving the wheels off that car. So yeah, I was just really, really happy for him. He's not my favorite driver, but like you said, Blake, it's a feel good story because he's a small track. Did he run late models?
Yes.
Yeah, late model guy.
Won the championship with Junior.
With the Cars Tour.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just a good story.
Well, and especially when you're Dale Jr. backed, right? I mean, you're going to have at least 80% of the fan base like you if you got the endorsement of Dale Jr. and Kelly Earnhardt. I mean, and especially making your way through junior motorsports, not just Xfinity, but also, like y'all said, with the Cars Tour. I mean, and he just kind of met Dale Jr. kind of online, didn't he? Shot his shot, was like, hey, I need a ride. And
I think it was iRacing.
yeah, and sure enough, Dale Jr. gives him a ride, and wow. He even predicted, he's like, Josh Berry is a Cup champion just waiting for a Cup Series owner who wants to be a champion. And
that was like a couple years ago, just to be frank with you. I mean, that's back when he was late modeling. So there's a lot of ways to look at this. Number one, I kind of think that this really opens the floodgate of NASCAR being able to recruit more diversity in regards to like where you come from. We've kind of already seen it a little bit. So you have like Lane Riggs that's kind of made his name in the truck series. You're having a lot of these small town people. Most of the way that I've always, the way that's been interpreted to me is if you have money, you can have a ride. But you don't. Josh Berry did not come into the sport with money. He came with the 2 feet that he drives with and the 2 hands that he steers the car with. That's basically what Berry came with. You give drivers like that a chance. I mean, think about the careers that could have been. You know, there's probably many drivers out there that would have killed to get the shot that Berry has. And you've seen the promise that they had early in the year when they were competing to win the Clashes Open, ended up finishing second. I mean, that car was strong, and you've seen it. But I mean, of course, you would expect short tracks, the Wood brothers, to be good at short tracks. Like you'd expect them to be fairly decent. Also, the first Penske car that's won this year. I mean, not actual Penske car, but
it's essentially a Penske car, though.
It's just, I mean, that's what it is. Underneath the hood, you take the labeling of what off. The setups are different, of course, but I mean, they're getting the information from Penske. They're getting all kinds of stuff. They're getting all kinds of resources, and that's essential when it comes. So I believe it's a lot of the driver, but that's very much an influence that can't be discredited. So,
and also first Ford of the year. We didn't have to wait till halfway through the season for Ford to get their first win like last year.
Which, I mean, we've seen the speed this year. We've seen them up front at plate tracks. Cindric won one of the duels this year. We've seen speed, but it's just nothing's come together for them until the Motorcraft Ford. I mean, legit, Motorcraft is Ford.
Yeah, exclusively Ford.
It's as Ford as you can get.
Exactly. Ends up in victory lane. Amazing. And last year when Harrison won, it was Dex Imogen that was on the hood, right? So Motorcraft's always on their cars in some way. But I mean, this is the first time Motorcraft's been in victory lane since Blaney.
As the primary sponsor, yeah.
Yeah.
And then before that, it was Trevor Bain.
Yeah.
At Daytona.
2011.
Blake was there, totally.
Not there.
Totally was. No one can prove that he wasn't there.
That's right.
I mean, you're the Fed, Cole. You should know.
Let me put my Fed hat on real quick.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm so happy. I mean, behind me, I have my Berry collection. You can't really see it, but his first win's right over my shoulder. It's the Martinsville car. He's a 3-time winner at Las Vegas now. Of course, not at Cup Series level, but he won twice in Xfinity Series. One time filling in for Annette in the 1 car, and then winning later in the year towards the playoffs in the 8 car. So, I mean, like he said in his interview, Las Vegas has been a great place for him, and they've treated him really well there. It's really nice to see. It's a great story. You couldn't, I mean, there's probably not a soul out there that's mad that Berry won other than maybe someone that they got into late models and be like, man, that guy's, whatever.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was just curious to see what the good race poll that Jeff Gluck does, and I was thinking this would be well into the 90s, but it's only 87.2 to 12.8%.
That's still really good.
No, it is. Yeah,
very good.
But I'm just like, what more do these almost 13% of people want?
They ought to be back in a car and driving.
I get it.
I hated the race because Dale Sr. was driving.
Gosh. But, I mean, fantastic race and won it cleanly. Him and Suarez went at it for 5-6 laps door to door. I mean, nothing dirty. Absolutely clean racing between both of them, and both of them needed a win. I mean, Barry wants to establish himself in the Cup Series getting that first win. That first win is always the hardest. I mean, think of really good drivers, and it took them forever to get that first win, to get that ball rolling. And then you got Suarez on the other end of the stick where it's a contract year for him. After this year, his contract is up with Trackhouse. So, I mean, go ahead, Austin. Hey, buddy.
Hey. Josh Berry got his first win before Ty Gibbs.
I think I told that to Austin. Texted that to him, which is maniacal on its own. Which, I mean, Ty Gibbs got a win at the NASCAR Open for the All-Star race, but I mean,
well, true. You know, it's always funny. Everybody says it takes about 100 races. Josh Berry won in like his 52nd start because he ran a little bit in Chase's car when he got hurt.
And Bowman during the North Wilkesboro race. He actually finished second in the Open, I think.
Yeah.
Because he qualified his way in.
Yeah.
That's the closest I've ever seen to my driver winning a race ever.
And your driver wasn't technically in.
No. So.
But yeah, just, gosh, I was so excited. I was yelling so much, so excited. My wife had to tell me that she could hear me through her headphones, and so had to tame it down. But man, I was so excited. Yeah.
So true. So true. I mean, I'll say it. Best race I've seen so far this year, and it didn't take a gimmick tire to do so. I mean, of course, they had tire strategy, replacing the tires with a little bit different tire compounds on both sides, but it didn't take option tires and a primary tire to do this. This was like perfect, just great tire wear, and the strategy played a huge part of how it ended out. If they didn't catch that caution, I don't see Barry getting a shot. He was still too far back in track position to be able to drive up the way that he was able to.
That caution, man, that screwed up Bell, that screwed up Reddick, that screwed up Hamlin, screwed up Larson, screwed up Bowman, Logano. It messed so many cars up because it came right at the end of, right in the middle of that green flag pit stop run and just flipped everybody's pit strategy on its head. So, yeah, that was a game changer.
Yeah. Wow, there for the longest time, NASCAR used to not call a caution for anything while it was during the green flag cycle. But I'm glad they did.
Junior debris caution came out. And then the whole rules changed.
Well, I mean, even like last year and some of 2 years ago, I mean, you know, Cole, we were there in Martinsville in 2023 when Larson won. And you've got a tire that's just bumping, bouncing on the track. And we're like, for the love of everything that's good and holy, throw the caution. This is such a dangerous thing. But they did once the pit stop.
At Darlington 2 years ago, Harvick was on fire.
Yeah.
He's on fire.
I mean,
he's trying to get out of his car, and they still hadn't thrown the caution.
Yeah. It's just like, it's like, and you throw the caution like 2 seconds before they get to the start-finish line out of safety, but it's stuff like that was just like, wow.
Remember like last year when the signage off the top of the racetrack fell down? There was a Walmart logo on top, and they threw a caution for that.
Yeah.
And
like cardboard at the frickin' Roval.
A whole tire compared to a little Walmart sign, which would do more damage?
That can kill somebody.
Yeah, but I say all that to say, for the context of what I'm about to say, I'm glad they threw the caution. Because, I mean, you should. It shouldn't matter if it's during a green flag stop. You hate it because it really does mess up the strategy, but it also inadvertently kind of creates strategy. But a caution's a caution. Safety.
It's just tough when they're like 3 feet away from the checker flag, essentially.
Yeah.
But
none of our business.
No, never. It's not like we were at that race. No. Want to see a driver that probably should have won win, but that is what it is. Man, speaking about tires, what in the world happened this week? Like, did did the pit crews not get their shipment of coffee in, or are the guns defective? Did someone just like give these people these like play pit guns, practice pit guns? Like, it was universal, and I don't know if it was just they knew that pit stops were going to be crucial and they were trying to hurry up this weekend, but there were so many errors. You had Kyle Busch, you had, well, SVG was more of a tire issue in regards to the quality of the race car, but you had Chase Briscoe loose tire. You had Christopher Bell. I mean, if he would have went on the racetrack, he would have ended up like Kyle Busch. Heads up to have Adam Stevens call and say, "Hey, go to one of your teammates and pit and get that." But I mean, what in the world? Like, this weekend was wild.
Yeah, and fellas, it ain't been that long ago to where if you had an 11-second pit stop, that was a pretty good pit stop. And now, if you're not low nines, high eights, you are losing a lot of spots on pit road with how competitive the new wheel is with the single lug nut. You gotta get it on there. You gotta get it quick. So I think that was definitely a big part of it. I think there was one car, I think that said the pit gun broke or something this week. I don't remember which car it was, but I do remember seeing that. I think during the cup race.
That's what I would say too.
Yeah. Blame the single source supplier.
Exactly. What about you, Austin? What was your overall thoughts? I know how you are in regard. I'm Bristol. I know it's a different instance, but like, it was getting kind of ridiculous in a way. It was like, what is going on?
I mean, like, I watch Formula One, and they have 3 seconds, under 3 seconds, to get 4 tires on, and you never see. And it's a one nut lug too for these cars. You never see that, and to see it happen like 3 or 4 times in a race, it's a bit ridiculous. It's going to be a lot less crowded on pit road this coming weekend with all these suspensions that are going to be coming out for people. But I mean, overall, the tire wear and the tires popping, I enjoyed that aspect. I mean, it wasn't like last year Bristol crazy.
Or Brickyard of 2008.
God, you're hitting a sore spot.
Yeah.
But I mean, I thought the fall off was respectable for the age of the track. I mean,
Yeah.
I think they said after about 15 laps, fall off was about a second. I like that.
That's
And
what you want, really.
I mean, you're seeing these cars down pit road, tires look like they went through a cheese grater, like just shredded. And that's where it takes real skill, especially at Vegas. We talked last week about how Vegas is not an easy mile and a half to run. It's bumpy and it's hard, especially if it gets warm. It gets slick, and so you got to be careful, manage your tires well, and yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with the overall tire consensus. Like, it's really cool to be watching these cars go, and you see the tire or the rubber literally lifting off the tire and going on the upper part of the track, or when they're trying to slow down on pit road to get to pit road speed, you see just shred coming. That's cool. That's a great visualization. Great for diecast too. I mean, seeing all that rubber build up on those cars, it's really cool. I mean, this is what you want, and when it doesn't take a tire that's an option tire that feels gimmicky in a way, I respect it a lot more. So Hendrick, I mean, I know I'm a Hendrick fan. I mean, I know I'm a 48 fan, but you do have to give it to him for the start of this year. All cars look extremely strong this weekend, and on top of that, they're in the top 6 in points. All 4 of the drivers are in the top 6. The only one that's not in the top 5 is Larson, and that's because the first 2 races of the year, you know that he's not going to be super competitive. But I mean, in Atlanta, he was, a host of R away from ended up winning the race. I mean, it's been a really successful year so far. Now, of course, it's going to be hard to stabilize that because with a win, you're only going to see more and more data that's going to be sent to these teams, like Ford, for instance, being able to send that data over to other Penske drivers and show how well they're running. So it's going to be more competitive here towards the middle of the year, but
Yeah, I was about to say, because all these tracks are in their wheelhouse. Vegas is in their wheelhouse. Larson and Byron always do very, even Bowman. Homestead's in their wheelhouse. Larson is second in most laps led in the history of the track.
Martinsville.
That's obviously that's Hendrick
Playground for
territory.
Hendrick, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, it'll balance out as we get into other tracks that aren't as much in their wheelhouse. But, yeah, I mean, I think we all expected Hendrick to be strong the first quarter of the season at least.
I just didn't expect him top 6 in points.
Yeah.
Universally. That's wild to me. It really is.
The most shocking thing is that Larson is the one that's outside the top 5.
Yeah.
That's the shocking piece.
Well, I think a big part of that too is Chase and Bowman. I think it took them a while to get back really consistent after their injuries. Before their injuries, they're in top 2, top 3 in points. I think when Alex Bowman had his injury, I mean, he was like leading the points, right? So now you've got half of your drivers are back fully healthy, fully on point, and they're helping their team out a good amount now because of it, and they can provide a lot of good data.
That's what we like to see. I mean, it's especially as a Bowman fan, you as a Larson fan, Kent as a Byron fan. I mean, we're 3 of the 4 of the puzzle. I mean, of course, you pull for Chase too. I'm not. I don't hate Chase. I just, out of the 4, he's probably my least favorite.
I will say I was a big Chase fan for a lot of years. He took over Gordon's spot, and so that was one of the big reasons I liked him. I remember like my grandmother, she was a big Bill Elliott fan, and I remember I was actually with her and Papa, huge fans. Probably the reason I am a NASCAR fan, and I was with him the night that Chase Elliott got his first nationwide series win in Texas, and seeing him do the back-to-back that year, right after that at Darlington, right, I'm like, all right, this guy's the real deal. He takes over for Gordon. Liked him. But I don't know, man. There was just something to where I'm like, I don't know fully what it was, but it was just like, all right, he's the most popular driver, but he's really hard to get access to. I don't see him doing tons and tons and tons for the sport, right? And I look just right across the hall at Hendrick, and you've got Larson, who's advertising the sport. Not to say Chase ain't a true racer, right? That's not fair. Not like that. But
more grassroots, like dirt track, stuff like that.
I mean, I've got a hoodie that says every day is race day for Larson, right? And he's always racing, signing autographs. He's one of those where he's going to take a lot of time to sign. You might not be able to get to talk to him much, but he signs a lot of stuff. And to me, that just resonated with me well. And so that's why I really became a Larson fan.
I mean, it's respectful, but that to me, it's the personality thing.
Yeah.
And I think Chase is showing his personality a little bit more.
That is true, especially this year.
Stabilizing more or less. Maybe that win at Bowman Gray really kind of boosted everything for him.
Yeah.
But I would even say Byron has more of a personality coming into the season to me. So
I wonder if that's because NASCAR's giving out all these incentive points, and like whoever does the most marketing for the sport gets like $1 million at the end of the year.
I mean, I'm sure that plays a factor into it.
You gotta admit, I mean, I know these guys are rich, but I can't imagine that an extra $1 million is going to make them sad. I mean, they're going to be happy.
Heck, if I'm a lower funded team, I'm trying my heckest to get everybody out there. Like I'm ponying this guy up. I'm taking him everywhere. I mean, whatever sponsor, just everywhere.
Sign autographs at the 7-Eleven or whatever. I mean,
whatever it takes. Because $1 million is a lot of money. It really is. Like, there's 2 things I want to mention, and we'll move on. Number 1, Ryan Blaney fans, I want you to take a moment, take a deep inhale, and then take a small exhale. He's going to be fine. He's been absolutely fantastic. The cars that he's had this year, phenomenal. I think of Atlanta, that restart of Atlanta, him moving 20 some positions, whatever the heck it was, from the back to the front to almost compete for a win. He's had fast race cars. He's just had bad luck. He started out with the Kyle Busch luck. And his first race win last year was Iowa. It took him, that's the middle of the year almost. Like, it was a little bit
Dead in the
before.
summer.
I mean, take a deep breath. He might win Martinsville next week. He could win at Homestead. Homestead's a pretty strong track for him.
He was leading like what? Turn 3 at Homestead last year?
Yep. And then Tyler Reddick said, I'm setting sail, boy.
Yeah.
And pulled one of the most crazy moves.
Lane.
And a mental error by Blaney. I mean, honestly, he should have been more closer to the top.
Well, Reddick was so good. Blaney was like, it was kind of like danged if you do, danged if you don't, because it's like, okay, if Blaney takes the high side, Reddick had such a good car, he was just going to die. But he goes low, and Reddick has enough time just to stay in the throttle on top, and it's like, okay. Like, what are you doing?
Well, I mean, if I'm taking one lane away from Tyler Reddick, I know what lane I'm taking away.
Oh, yeah, take away the high line.
So you can say the same thing about Larson. I mean, you want to take away whatever their strongest advantage is. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just talking about this weekend. Like,
okay,
started off, he was running good in practice.
Yep.
Popped a tire.
Yep.
Hit the wall. Back into the car. Didn't realize how bad it was till they got it into the shop, and you're like, oh, this is a bit worse than we thought. But I thought it was the funniest thing. Like 10 minutes after, you see somebody by Joey's car adjusting the PSI to make sure that it's the right, because Blaney's was too low. I thought that was the funniest thing. It's a horrible weekend because he wrecks in practice, doesn't get to qualify, so he's already starting at the back of the field. Then gets involved in a wreck after making progress, like, consistently. Like, he had a fast car, and I think if he could have gotten to the point where he had clean air, I think he'd have been a car to contend with. But unfortunately, just never got to that point. And just a horrible, horrible day for him.
And in the wreck that he got in, I mean, you can blame whoever you want to. You can say it's a spotter or whoever. It could be Blaney's spotter or whatever. But it was just wild. You had 4 cars just neck and neck, and there was no one lifting at that point, and it just, Blaney kind of took some.
I think it was a mixture of Blaney and Bill.
Yeah. So I found it absolutely hilarious that Blaney's like, I can't freaking drive this thing back. It's destroyed. The freaking radio. Everybody knows that Blaney's radio, if you listen in, man, has a temper. Not Kurt Busch level. Kurt Busch had absolute.
That boy was on a whole nother level.
But he gets upset, and when he's upset, he is vocal about it. It's not, Kyle Busch was kind of the same way, but people view it different. With Kyle Busch, everybody be like, "Oh, it's just Kyle Busch. That's just how he is." But with Blaney, it's like, it's pretty cool. I like that. It's like,
Kyle was just snarky. Kyle would just give the most passive-aggressive comments. Like, he still does it to this day. Just gives the most passive-aggressive comments. That's what makes Kyle Kyle. But you hear Blaney,
it's like,
they show the radio, it's like, I can't.
It's like when you're at the hospital and you're listening to somebody's heart monitor.
Oh, God.
That's the equivalent of listening to Blaney's radio.
That's true.
Except, I mean, if you're listening to it raw, there's no beeps. So
no bleeps.
I do want to mention that I've seen a lot, and I get, I mean, the Wood Brothers are in victory lane, but to absolutely bash Harrison Burton the way that people have been, I understand where it comes from, the perspective of the performance, but to say that he's like a no driver and whatnot, and then in the Xfinity Series this year, he's having a career year. I mean, top performer, great in points, taking a team that was a nobody, couldn't do anything with Deegan. Best performance they got last year was Logano at Chicago, if I remember correctly.
Did he even get a top 10 out of that race?
Yeah, he got a top, what was it, 7th? 6th?
Okay.
Something like that.
But still, like, 3-time champion, and 8's the best you can do.
I mean, it's also a road course.
Well, true.
I can't imagine Logano's road course prowess is superb by any means, but he's competitive at least. But I think it's unfair. I understand where people are upset that he didn't perform to the capabilities that they think the Wood Brothers car was at, but I would also argue that they were not getting this information like they are now.
Well, you almost wonder too, like, if you're a Penske and you own the Wood Brothers, but you don't, right? So it's like, well, let's use this as a test car. And if it works, great. If not, we've got three high-powered hot rods that we can fall back on, right? I almost wonder if that was some of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes.
And I think that it was mentioned like someone in Ford like was kind of like, hey, we need. I mean, that literally has Ford on the freaking car on the side. Primary sponsors like, hey, this car needs to be running better than where it's at.
Yeah.
So I think that was very much an incentive. You got your REM saying, hey, this car needs to be more competitive. I'm sure all the Ford camps like, hey, we got to do something. But then you also had Stuart Haas doing what they did last year. I mean, that certainly didn't help anything either.
Well, and I know that the Wood Brothers, they've made a couple like institutional changes. I think John Wood has taken a bigger role.
He's at the racetrack a lot more.
Yeah.
I think I ain't going to speak for him for sure, but
Right.
his career racing wise is probably not how he wanted to end it up. And he may have had just a sore spot from that. I could understand that, coming from a family like that and having the pressure and whatnot. And then, you don't have an absolutely phenomenal career. I mean, you're competitive at least, you're doing whatever, but I could see being sore in regards to that. So, but I'm glad that he's back and he's being a part of a family-run organization because they're going to need more family to run it.
Well, and I think personally, Harrison Burton got moved up too quickly.
I agree.
He did. I think it was 2020, either 2020 or 2021. Yeah, it would have had to been 2020. He gets like 4 wins in Xfinity Series. He's driving for Gibbs. The next year, he gets 0 wins, but he knows he's moving up to Cup, right? But it's like, all right, you had a good year, 1 good year in Xfinity. I don't know that constitutes Cup readiness, right? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But he doesn't really win anything that next year. And then he's in the Cup Series, and it's like his first race he's flipping at Daytona. And I know it's not his fault, but that kind of foreshadowed his career, at least in the meantime.
You also have to think that he swapped REMs. He went from Toyota to Ford. That's a big adjustment. I don't care what people say in regards.
Yeah.
In regards to anything like that, swapping to a different manufacturer is different. You're dealing with different people, different simulators, different everything.
And Toyota's so good in their development program. I mean, if us 3 nobodies, if we wanted to drive in NASCAR, heck, I'm getting into the Toyota pipeline. I mean, as a Ford guy personally, I would not want to be in the Ford pipeline. Toyota's obviously where it's at.
Toyota Gazoo.
Gazoo racing. Well, you might want to be getting in the Dodge pipeline here soon, the way that's talking.
True. I'm just saying in the meantime.
Yeah. But I just wanted to mention that. We'll move on. So I'm just going to hit a few high points about notable entries for the next few races. Baptist Self 200 for the Truck Series. We're going to have Brandon Jones in the 01 truck. So that's interesting. I can't even remember last time if Brandon Jones ran in a truck race. So it's been a while if so. That's pretty cool to see. Kyle Larson in that 7 Spire. And I have saved on my phone. All 3 cars have Hendrick cars for Spire this weekend.
Talk about a spotter nightmare.
They literally posted that like, yeah, good luck to our spotters this weekend.
What is it? 077 and
77.
77.
And
God.
the 77 has a different scheme, but I mean,
Colors are still the same.
Pretty close, yeah. 07 Corey Day making his second start. I'm sure he's going to figure it out. He's too good of a racer not to. Stephen Parsons in the 20 car for Young's Motorsports. That's a name that I haven't heard in a little bit. It's good to hear him come back and make a start.
Yeah.
44 Chastain for Nice. Very good combination there. And then you also have Akinora Ogata for his own motorsports, driving the 63 car. It's funny because Jeski labeled it as the 163, and I was like looking online, like, is there someone actually going to put 163 on the race car? But no, it's a 63 for the truck series.
Let's hear Blake say that name.
Yeah.
Akinori Ogata.
It's not
Akinora Ogata.
So Japanese, so an increase of diversity for the sport. Gotta love it. Xfinity, there's a whole bunch. Hard Rock Bet 300. So you have Larson the 17. That's probably the one most people are looking forward out to. But you also have Corey Heim in the 24.
Mm-hmm.
Mason Majuro in the 53 for Joey Gase Racing. Mike Snyder. Man, that's a name I've not heard in a while.
I think he actually raced at the Homestead race last year in the Xfinity Series.
It must be one of his favorite tracks.
For DGM.
That's who he's racing with this weekend.
Okay.
DGM/JIM Racing.
Yeah.
07, you have Alex LeBay coming back. So, number 19, Justin Bonsinger. Bonsignor.
Justin Bonjour.
Bonjour, baby.
Ricky Booby.
Ricky Booby. You have fast race car. AGR. 45, Brad Perez for Alpha Prime. That's a name I hadn't heard in a little bit. Leland Honeyman in the number 70. 74, Dawson Cram for Mike Harmon Racing. So, I mean, a whole bunch of drivers that you don't hear week to week. So, that's really cool. And in the Cup Series, you have one driver that's an open driver. He'll get in. JJ Yaley will be back in the number 44 this weekend. So, look forward to that. And speaking about looking forward to something, we're going to throw it to Austin for his segment of One Wide. He will be talking about the track changes, which, man, oh man, he's got a very fruitful topic. And then he'll also interlock the history with that, since Kent's not here this weekend.
Yes, sir. So, looking ahead to Homestead this coming week. First off, fun fact, I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but Homestead was created as a result of a hurricane. Hurricane Andrew came through the area back in early 1990s, really hit the Homestead area hard, and it was started as a means to help the city bounce back after the hurricane came through. Originally, it was designed to be a rectangular oval, basically a smaller version of Indy. Unfortunately, this design didn't work. It works for Indy, but you gotta think about it. Indy's like 2.5 miles, but not Miami. Did not work for Miami. So what they did is they widened the turns a bit to try and help improve passing and just the flow of the track as a whole, and it did not work. Unfortunately, in 1997, during a Craftsman truck race, John Nemechek, brother of Joe Nemechek, died in a collision in turn 1. I don't know. Did you guys know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, back in 1997.
Wow.
So after that, some changes were made. An $8.2 million spending was spent in the summer of 97 to tear down the corners and turn the course into more of a traditional continuous turn oval with 6-degree banking. And what is really cool is Joe Nemechek ran out of that track as the winner in the remodeled course in the Busch Series race that November.
Wow.
Really cool.
Wrote itself.
Yeah, really, really cool storyline there. In '03, it underwent another major rebuilding program with a $12 million rebanking project that transformed the track from basically being flat. Basically, this track was almost like New Hampshire, just a mile and a half. But they computer designed the bankings to be a variable banking system that goes from 18 to 20 degrees in the turns. Today, the track holds 55,000 people in the grandstands. And Homestead and NASCAR have a long history. For those of you who have been following the sport for a while, you know this used to be the home of the NASCAR Championship and used to be the last race of the season. They would only race here one time. And it was at the end of the year. Usually today, obviously with the final race being in Phoenix, usually it's still toward the end of the NASCAR calendar, and usually it's a playoff race. But here we are, racing in March in Miami. So the layout of the track is pretty simple. It's a front stretch of 4 degrees of banking. The drivers go into turns 1 and 2. That goes from 18 to 20 degrees of banking. It's a variable banking back into a 4-degree banking on the backstretch to another 18 to 20 degrees of banking in turns 3 to 4. The key to racing at Homestead, and I'm sure you boys would agree with me on this, the key to racing, pick the lane that works for you. But usually, and you guys can say yay or nay in agreement, the key to winning, the drivers are usually the best, are the ones that are this far away from the wall. If you can't see me on the audio version, it's very small. I mean, you look at they are
Microscopic.
it's insane. So your guys like Larson, Reddick, Bell, guys that enjoy being right on the edge between wrecking out and racing, those are the guys that usually do well here. But realistically, though, anywhere on the track is a viable option to run. But usually, if you can get that high lane to work for you, that's the lane to run. Getting into the history, just some trivia for you guys. Who has the most laps led at this track?
Team-wise, I feel like it's got to be Roush. Man, they used to dominate there.
The leader is Carl Edwards.
Yeah.
Larson is one good race away from passing Carl Edwards. Larson is in second place. I think if Larson leads like 100 laps this week, I think he could pass Edwards for the most laps led. But Edwards right now still holds the lead of most laps led here. Most wins, it's a 3-way tie. Biffle, Stewart, and Hamlin. They all three have the most wins. Hamlin, of course, is the only active driver remaining. But I was kind of surprised. I forgot Biffle has run well at Homestead in the past. Anyone want to take a guess on who won the inaugural Cup race in '99 at Miami?
Tony Stewart?
Yep. Tony Stewart won the inaugural Cup race in '99. The inaugural race for the was in 1995 for Xfinity and Busch, and the winner of that was Dale Jarrett. Now, taking over Kent's side of things, when I think of Homestead, Miami, I think of two things. First, I think of Jimmy Johnson, which honestly, it's surprising that he doesn't have more laps led here. He's not even top 10 all time in laps led at Homestead. But he was crowned champion 5 consecutive times here between '06 and 2010. But Jimmy was so dominant during this time period, he didn't need to win or even lead most of the race in order to win the championship or to win. He just had to run conservatively, not wreck, and he would win the championship. That's who I think of first. You think of all those pictures of that 48 lows doing burnouts and the picture of Jimmy standing there on Homestead's arms crossed and the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 titles, just lined up there for him. Hard to not think of Jimmy Johnson when you think of Homestead, Miami. Now the good stuff. I would be wrong for not mentioning the elephant in the room. The 2016 NASCAR season finale. The way it ended, for those of you who may not know, I encourage you to go back and watch that race. NASCAR legend Carl Edwards was leading in the race. He was in the Final Four of the playoffs that year, and he had the race in the bag. But then there was a questionable late caution that was thrown. Dylan Lupton cut down a tire, but was able to get to the apron of the track without an incident. NASCAR through the caution. This obviously bunched the field back up, which would eventually cause a wreck between him and Joey Logano, who was also racing for the championship that week. If you haven't listened to the interview of Carl talking to Dale Jr., highly recommend. Great episode. But Edwards says that it was a strange week going into that championship race. The driver was without a motorhome at Homestead due to it breaking down a couple of times on the way to the track. He nearly crashed out in practice, and he also just has some odd things going on in his personal life. And the odd week just crescendoed with his championship hopes just breaking the crash on that late race restart because of that questionable caution. And Edwards, he has the theory that the caution was thrown on purpose to bunch the field back up to cause a more exciting finish, which we know NASCAR would never do that.
No. Especially when Dale Jr. was the lucky dog.
But this wasn't the first heartbreaking end he had to a championship either. For those of you who remember, he was tied with Tony Stewart in 2011, but he lost on a tiebreaker. So I want to know, because I think this is one of the most memorable races at Homestead, Miami. Do you guys remember how you felt watching that race and just seeing that Carl Edwards, he had it in the bag, and then it just fell apart?
Heartbroken. I mean, I loved watching Carl Edwards when I was younger. You know, big Gordon fan. 2016, I mean, obviously rooted for Elliott because he took over for Gordon, but you know, he wasn't really winning that year. And so I'm looking at the Final Four option. It's like, I would love to see Carl Edwards finally win one, because I remember the 2011 season, and I mean, coming down to the wire, I'm like, wow. Wanted Edwards to win, didn't happen. But you see that caution, and it's like, okay, maybe some tire got on the track, maybe there's some debris, but you also know during that time period, they were trying to entertain as much as they could because the racing was awful. I mean, the stands were getting empty. They were tearing them down left and right, and they were trying to entertain when nothing was entertaining. You think, well, maybe Carl can get him on this restart, and then he throws a desperate block trying to block Logano, and
it was like a Logano block on Logano.
And I saw it right when he hits that inside wall. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, this dude was just laps away from getting a championship.
Kind of feel the same way about Allgaier. Allgaier is the same way for him. Not necessarily being screwed out of a championship, but it always felt like that last race, man, it would just, something would happen. Something would always happen to him. I was on the polar opposite of the 2011 spectacle. I loved Tony Stewart back then. I wasn't, I was a junior fan, but when it came down to that championship, I was like, you have the Subway guy, and you got the Burger King guy, and I'm like, I'm Burger King all the way.
Old Spice.
Like, yeah, I love Subway now, but like back then I was like, oh yeah, Burger King, Tony Stewart,
Flat.
You love the personality, and like I mentioned before with Edwards, I thought he came across as kind of like flamboyant's not a good word, but more or less
self-righteous,
more like preppy in a way to me. It's just how it came across, and when I matured enough to kind of respect what Carl Edwards did in the sport was probably around that Homestead time. And to see something like that happen to somebody, I mean, you can't help but not feel gutted. And then it comes back to what we've mentioned multiple times before. It's not something that's new. The consistency of NASCAR making calls has been an issue for a long time. And I feel like that's probably the most crucial call that I can think of in recent NASCAR history that affected not only someone's championship, but their desire to even run in the sport. And I 100% double down on what Austin said about the Dale Jr. Downloads interview with Edwards. It's a must listen. I don't care if you're non-spiritual, if you are spiritual, to see the emotion that Carl Edwards has as he talks about it. It's all raw, and you can't help but get a little bit choked up. I mean, in all honesty, and that's coming from someone that was like, I didn't even like him. probably my best memory of him was when he won the Darlington race that me and Blake were at. It's the second race I ever attended. And when he won, I was kind of like mediocre. But now looking back, I'm like, I got to see Carl Edwards win a race in a Joe Gibbs car.
Yeah.
I mean, even more crazy. I'm glad that he's getting the respect. I seen the appreciation that he was given when he came back for the Roval last year. He was one of the guests that came to the NASCAR fan experience stage, and everybody was so happy to see him. I actually made a custom diecast of that Darlington win that I got signed by him. And he looked at me, he said, "Man," he said, "I love this diecast." He said, I explained, I made it after, but he's like, "I've never seen it before." And I was like, "Well, that's because I made it." But it just shows what kind of a good person he is. Just the story, the raw story that is explained, not even just about Homestead, but his whole career. It's a must listen. And I sent that to the group chat. I'm sure Austin may have listened to it before I sent it, but I'm like, this is the best interview, hands down, that Junior's ever done. And he's had some amazing ones. I mean, you have like John Force. It's like the polar opposite. It's just like wild. What a wild interview. But it was fantastic in a different way. But
No, the wild one was the Jeremy Mayfield one. That's another day. But
yeah.
Talk about
I
NASCAR
agree.
conspiracy.
But I agree. I mean, it's just a shame, and I didn't even realize it. But 2016 was the year that Stewart retired and Edwards stepped away from the sport. The two legends, Hall of Famers, gone.
I almost have to wonder. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you out there, but I almost wonder if it was the Homestead race, because I don't remember there being talks of stages coming along until early 2017. I almost wonder if this experience for NASCAR, if we have to call cautions to make the race interesting, and we realize we really screwed up here. I almost wonder if that's where kind of like the conception of stage racing started. Of we'll just throw two cautions a race, bunch them back up, and maybe that'll help.
You giving the boomers some fuel right now, bruh.
I'm telling. Well, you gotta ask that question. I think. I mean,
well, yeah. I mean, it's an honest question.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like throwing tires into a bonfire. I mean, in all honesty.
And don't get me wrong, I love stage racing. I'm just asking if I'm just kind of thinking out loud. Like, I wonder if that's where that started.
It's possible.
Yeah.
But
yeah, for sure.
Speaking about bonfires, everybody go ahead, Austin.
I was just going to say the one piece of information I didn't drop about Homestead because I want to segue into Blake's segment. This track has not gone through a repave since 2004. So I think what Blake's going to reveal is we might see some similar racing and similar strategy to what we saw this weekend. So I'll let Blake take it.
Yeah, Homestead is a driver favorite and a fan favorite, but the drivers love it because you got to wheel and deal these cars. Very low grip and lots of fall off. Like you said, you're going on 21, 22 years without a repave, and those tires are going to wear quick, and you got to go where the other guys are not to help save your tires some and try to even that out. But for the specific tire notes for this week, they are running typical 18-inch tires, but they are using the same tire that they had last Homestead race, which was a great tire for that track. Really excited they're bringing that back. And that track is so old, it's so abrasive. Doesn't really matter what kind of tire you bring, there's going to be some good fall off. And you might have some strategy like you saw this past week in Vegas where, all right, some guys have been out 15, 20 laps, so I try to save some tires for the end, or if you're running really bad, do you try to come down, get some tires, leapfrog your way to the front, right? You call that comers and goers, and you've got some people who can really turn it into a good strategy race potentially if the cautions were to fall that way. The Xfinity, and I know I haven't mentioned much on the Xfinity and truck tires, but the Xfinity series and the truck tires actually run a 15-inch diameter tire, and that's why, for the most part, you do see more fall off in the Xfinity and the truck series. There's just less tire, so that means the tire just gets gone quicker, and there's more fall off is essentially what that means. And so When it comes to tires, I mean, this is one of the best showcases of how when the tires wear out, and they're not going to wear out in a bad way where it's like they're cutting down and you can't really race. They wear out to the point of it depends on how you drive your car. If you want to go really fast at first, great, but you're going to slow down on the long run. If you can serve your tires at first, you're going to have more speed later on. So, really excited about it. The track's awesome. One of the best tracks on the circuit this week.
I think that's kind of why I handed last week when we were ending. I was like, I'm really looking forward to Homestead. I love Homestead. I think it's a fantastic track. And for what I understand, I mean, you of course have the beach and stuff there. Miami's a whole like different ball game. I actually have one of my friends online that I play games with. He's actually from that area, and just to see all the stuff that they have going on. So I mean, if you're planning a weekend at a track or a week at a track for vacation, that's one of them that you want to kind of run with. So we'll go through the fan stuff really quick. So I just marked down a couple of appearances that I've seen on the NASCAR website. So you had Blaney, Stenhouse, Bowman, Suarez, and Barry making an appearance on Saturday at the fan experience stage. And then Sunday you have Chastain, Ty Gibbs, John Hunter, Nemechek, Hamlin, Dinger, Guillermo Santa Cruz, the track president. And there's actually a tailgate at Walmart sponsored by Straight Talk, the primary sponsor of the race. Hearst will be there 4:15 to 5, SVG 5:15 to 6, and there'll be a concert by Fillmore, a country artist, from 6 to 7 at that Walmart. So uh, just some general information. Sanchez will be at Ride the Wall Cantina as well. I believe that's at the track. For any week that you're wanting stuff, go to the fan guide on the track. So Homestead Miami Speedway's website, put a backslash, put fan guide, or just search it on Google. It'll come up. Anyways, you'll find driver appearances and stuff, and that's constantly updated because that's just the fan experience stuff. There's stuff that they do for manufacturer sponsors, sponsors that are at the racetrack, all kinds of good stuff. And that stuff will always be centered in the fan zone. That's why I said last week the fan zone is your friend when you go to a NASCAR race. It's where you're going to get the most value along with the ticket itself. So we're going to move to the spicy takes. I'll recap. Me and Blake both got ours correctamundo this weekend. Suarez got a top 10 and Prius got a top 5. Kent said Noah G was going to get a top 5 or top 10. Had a car to do it, in all honesty. Looked really strong and just couldn't pull it out. So, and then Austin said there's only going to be about 5 cautions or less than 5 cautions this week, and there was 9, including the stage. So 7 on track cautions. So, I mean, he was close, I guess, in a way. So, we'll take it.
I was more close to my first original.
That's true. That's true. So, actually, no, you were correct on your original because you said that the pole sitter was going to be outside the top 15. Michael McDowell finished 16th. And then you retracted it after Blake came after you. So, you can blame Blake for that one.
It's not spicy enough.
Yeah. So just for that punishment, we're going to make Blake take the spicy take to start out.
Let's say AJ Allmendinger gets a top 5.
Got good momentum coming in. I mean, he had a top 10 last week. It's a great racetrack for him.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean,
he gets a top 5 this week.
All right, Austin, what about you, buddy?
Kyle Larson doesn't get a top 10.
Oh, dang, that's for Cup or Truck or
For
Xfinity. Cup. Okay. I was going to say all 3. It's just for the whole weekend.
Maybe if he doesn't, get impatient this year.
Get a barrel or 2.
Yeah.
Or 3.
I'll tell you what, I'll do the flip opposite of that. I will have Kyle Larson sweep the weekend. No. Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup.
I like that one.
I'm sure you do as a Larson fan.
I think he gets 2 out of 3. I think.
Okay. That's fair.
We'll see.
You think Cup's going to be the one that he doesn't get out of the 3 or Xfinity? I think he's going to be really good in the truck.
Yeah, I think it's no contest for the truck, but I just don't know about Xfinity. I don't know. If it was a short track, I'd say sure, but I don't know. We'll see.
I got Kent's. I actually texted him asking for his. He said Logano continues his streak of no top tens to start the season. I mean, uh, I I can't argue with him
I can't either.
because but to me it's almost not spicy because it's not a great track for Logano statistic wise.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if anybody can, prove Kent wrong, I mean, it's probably Logano. I mean, he showed Byron that one year, so yeah, so that's some good stuff. All right, we're going to transition it to Austin. I'm trying to speed this up.
You're good. All right, so looking at our competition, we got trucks for the next 2 weeks. This week at Homestead, and then Martinsville. So we'll start there. Blake took home the W this weekend. Back-to-back truck races with Heim finishing P1. Kent came in second with Enfinger finishing P. Cole came in third with Chandler Smith going P8, and then I came in last with Tyler Ankrum finishing P10. In all seriousness, though, not even though I finished last, my guy still got a top 10, and so that's it shows you how close we are where we all were with our picks. So going into Homestead, I have the first pick, and I mean I'm taking Larson. So I'm taking Larson off the board. Sorry guys, but
I don't blame you, brother.
I mean that is it. That's easy money for me right there. Cole, you got the next pick. You can't pick Rhodes, McDowell, or Chandler Smith. Who you got?
So remind me, can Kent pick Heim this weekend?
Can't.
I feel like he can.
Cannot.
I feel like
he cannot.
All right. With that, I'm gonna take Majetski this weekend.
All right, Cole.
Because I know Blake can't pick Heim either.
Kent has sent me his list. Kent is going in order of preference. He is going Hemrick this weekend.
Interesting pick.
Interesting.
I think he was pretty decent in the Xfinity series there.
Yep. And so, Blake, that leaves you. You can't pick McDowell, Busch, or Heim.
Give me Chandler Smith.
It's a good pick. I probably would have went with Enfinger or Friesen. One of those two. They have really good statistics at Homestead.
Save. I almost went Lane Riggs, but
I wouldn't waste my pick on Lane Riggs this weekend.
no,
I think
I'm saving him.
It's going to be great when someone picks Lane Riggs next week when you can't.
And for Bristol.
So, looking at our regular season standings, right now Blake is in first place with 9 points. I'm second with 8. Kent is third with 7. And Cole is at the bottom with 6. And still, Blake is the only person to have their championship prediction locked in for the playoffs, and that is Corey Heim. The rest of us have Enfinger, Hemrick, and Majeski. Still waiting on those to come into fruition. Moving ahead to Xfinity. Cole took the W this weekend at Vegas with Allgaier, finished with P1, also locking in my championship prediction into the playoffs. Kent finished in P2 with Almirola, and then I finished third. All of us went 1, 2, 3, except for Blake. Jesse Love finishing P3, and then we have Blake coming in last with Travis Quapple finishing P17.
Carson Quapple.
He just did. Yeah, sorry.
He started out really well in the race, but man, did he fall off.
So, Blake gets first pick. Blake, you cannot pick Chastain, Bowman, or Quapple. So, who are you taking?
Young Money.
All right, Blake is taking Larson.
I think it's a throw.
Sounds like a fad.
I'm picking second this weekend in Xfinity. Give me Sam Mayer.
It's a good pick. It's been consistent, really good this year.
Very good pick.
Looking at Kent, what he sent in his order of preference, he is going Sammy Smith.
Man, that's rough. I think Sammy Smith's average finish is like 16th at this track. 16.6 or something like that. He's got a feeling.
Should we change Kent's pick for him just to be nice?
No. I think he's trying to reestablish that bottom spot.
All right. Cole, you cannot pick Allgaier, Love, or Mayer. Who are you taking?
I think I'm going to go statistics on this one. I'm going to take the best averaging finisher currently in Xfinity Series there. I'll take Austin Hill.
He won last year, right?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He did.
Jesse Love is really high up there, but I can't pick him. So,
All right, looking at the regular season standings, Cole is currently leading in Xfinity with 15 points. I am in second with 13. Blake is third with 12, and then Kent is at his usual spot at the bottom with 11 points. Like I said, all of us have locked in our championship predictions. I have Allgaier, Cole has Zilich, Kent has Jesse Love, Blake has Austin Hill. All four of them are locked into the playoffs. So that is how it is looking on the Xfinity side of things. Looking into Cup, obviously we don't pick these until the weekend, but I gotta say I did it again this week. 3 straight victories with Chastain finishing in P5, locking me in, which I will take. Blake came in second this week with Bell. I think Bell finished, was it 12th? And then Logano finished, and then Hamlin, I don't know where Hamlin finished, but 25th. Kent picked Hamlin, and we all told him that wasn't a good pick, but,
he thought that the tires was going to be more of a staple in this race, and if there's anyone that can conserve tires, it's Denny Hamlin. So
I see that.
But I did think it was a throw for sure.
So, looking ahead to this week, I asked Kent to give me kind of his prediction for Cup. He did not give me one. So, Cole, looking for...
Wait, you asked him and he didn't give you one?
No. So I will defer to you. Who is somebody you're eyeing coming into this weekend? Somebody you either you can pick or you can't pick that you think has got a solid shot at a good finish this weekend?
I mean, your mind would immediately go back to last year with Reddick on that top line passing Blaney. So you would expect those two to be high on people's lists. But I'm going to go with the guy that's won 3 races this year. Christopher Bale would probably be my pick because I believe can't pick Bale this week. I think he's locked out of picking Bale.
I know I am.
He's not. Well, I feel like he's going to pick Reddick or Blaney, which, I mean, are great picks. Blaney's really good at the track, but Bale is really, really good at Homestead. Very consistent. Always finishes. I think his average finish is like 3 to 4 in between those two. And like we've mentioned several times, it's about not necessarily about winning every week. It's about just being there, having strong positioning. Like Austin's won the last 2 weeks because he's picked 2 drivers that are really consistent in Chastain and Buescher that may not get all those stage points, but end up being up front towards the end of that racetrack.
Yep. All right, Blake, you're picking after Cole this week. Who's somebody that you're eyeing coming into Homestead this weekend? And you can't pick SVG, Blaney, or Bell, just so you know.
I don't know that I'll necessarily pick them, but if Front Row can give Gregson a good car, going to be interested to see what he can do because he was awesome at this track in the Xfinity
Series.
He's kind of like how Barry was at Vegas with Junior Motorsports. Ironically enough, Gregson was with Junior Motorsports, and so I'm going to be interested to see how he can do. They're a little inconsistent, just kind of all over the board, but if he can have a decent car, Gregson likes this place a lot. So
I think that honestly last week had a great shot at getting a nice top 8, 7.
Yeah.
Had a really good car.
Yeah.
Just tire just gone.
Yeah.
Like sent to the moon, which isn't real by the way, but sent to the moon. What about you, Austin? What are you considering here this week?
Well, usually the positions that I've been in the past couple of weeks, I've had to take high value, the best value available with where I'm picking. And for myself, I can't pick Reddick, so he's off the board for me. I can't pick Buescher, and I can't pick Chastain, but I'm not sad about that. Someone that I'm honestly considering picking, if the cards fall a certain way, is AJ Allmendinger. Sounds completely off the wall, but he performed very well last week at Vegas, getting a top 10. And of all in the next gen era, he has the second highest average. He's tied actually with Christopher Bell for the highest average finish at Homestead, Miami. He has 2 top 5s and 3 top 10s in the next gen era at Homestead, which when you think of Dinger, you think of him being on road courses and doing well. But Homestead, there's something about Homestead that he does well. I'm not saying he'll win. The last 2 guys I picked and have won with have not won the race. It's just that average finish and consistency. So, if the cards fall a certain way and he his average starting position is 20th. He's in the 20s, and he's able to work his way up and get himself a top 5 finish. So that's just somebody I'm considering is Allmendinger. But looking at the competition, currently I lead the regular season standings with 16 points. Blake is second with 13. Cole is third with 12, and then Kent is at the bottom with 10. Kent just cannot break the curse. But still, I am the only one with the championship prediction locked in with Christopher Bell. Kent, Cole, and Blake are still waiting for theirs to come on through. But that is all I have for the Pick'em series at Homestead this week.
I find it kind of ironic that none of us picked Kyle Larson, and I think it's kind of a lot of us looking at the long game. Next 3 races for Larson, one at Darlington before, one at Martinsville before, predominantly a really good racer overall, but we've not picked him at all this year.
Wow.
Not once has anyone picked Kyle Larson this year.
Well, yes, Kent picked him at Coda.
That don't count. But
still, once out of all the tracks we've done, once.
Last year, when we were in the heat of the championship, I mean, every week it's like, oh, I pick Larson because he's available to me, or somebody be like, oh, he's open to me now, I'm going to pick Larson. This year has been nothing so far. So I find that very interesting. But with that, I am going to conclude this podcast. Thank you guys for listening. Next week, it's going to be It's Just Ortec Racing at Martinsville. So me and Blake are going to be at the truck and cup race. I imagine we'll probably make it to the Xfinity race. If he doesn't, I will somehow.
I just have a feeling.
I have a little weird fidget in my pinky toe that we're going to be there for some reason. But thank you guys for listening. And yeah, see you guys later. Peace out.